Good morning. I have prepared another presentation. So it's the second open mic presentation presented by me in a row. So I expect from now on that everyone will have two presentations in a row. And I'm just I'm going to present you what I was doing in the summer. So it is about generating documentation. If you remember, I had a presentation on the topic which tools are good for creating documentation of ontologies. It was in December, and this is extending or coming out from this other presentation. So at first I will present you the problem. The problem is that I have some ontologies. Those ontologies have some versions, and I want to update the documentation or generate the documentation as soon as the ontology is published or the new version is published. So I was thinking about it quite a lot, and I came with this solution. So I'm pushing ontologies into GitHub. GitHub has webhook connected to Jenkins, and if something happens in GitHub, Jenkins runs WIdoco, uploads generated data on the server, and it is then published as a documentation. So thank you for your attention, and that's all from my side. Okay, we go a little bit more into the detail. So what happens on GitHub? In GitHub, we just need to make sure that we do a few things, right? First thing is we need to upload the ontology itself. So we have more ontology files we can use here. Important thing is that we need to upload to know which of the files do we use as the source of the ontology. In this example, I was running some examples on PopWizard ontology. So on Jenkins, we have a job that runs all the time when PopWizard ontology is updated, and it updates the documentation as well, and it uses this model TTL. If you do any changes in the ontology, the webhook is triggered anyway. So you can have the new documentation which will have no changes, but it will be generated anyway. But those are the details that can be done later. Another thing we need to have here in the GitHub repository is the configuration file. The configuration file here is called config metadata. Yes, it does not really matter how it is called because you need to link it from Jenkins job anyway to say which configuration file you want to use in the transformation or in the documentation generation. What is important about this configuration metadata? This is how it looks like. There's one thing in WIdoco. This is just it. You have the key value pairs, and the list of keys you can find at the documentation of WIdoco, which is in this second link. And this first link tells you how to generate metadata in common, and it is really recommended to add metadata annotations straight in the ontology. So you don't need to create this configuration file. If all the metadata for the ontology you want to publish, you want to use while generating documentation, if you can add it as annotations to the ontology itself. It is easier, it does not need any other files, but it does not support all of the properties we need. And in this case, we are linking to the introduction section, to the abstract section, so to the sections for the documentation, we link it from the metadata. And this is something which I didn't find how to reference it from the ontology itself using annotations. So it's probably not supported. So this is the main reason we are using the configuration file for the metadata. And then we need those documentation sections. I'm storing it in a GitHub repository as well. I was trying to work with some files stored somewhere on the server or something like that. I encountered some problems because in the configuration, the path you use, it does not copy the files somewhere to the documentation, it just reference it. So if you have it somewhere on the server and then you move it to another server, you need to have the same passes you had on the previous server or on your local host. So this is quite unlucky. So this is the case. I have used the repository itself, and if we use the absolute path for the repository files, it's just referenced from the generated documentation, and in the end, if you change something in the repository, it changes in the documentation because it's not copied; it's referenced. We use 4 of the files: abstract, description, introduction, and references. The rest is generated dynamically from the data. But if we do not use this, we will have some placeholder texts only in those sections. So it is really good to use something. In this case, we have only one language version. It's of course possible to use more language versions, but we will come back to that later. And the last thing you need to do at the GitHub repository is to set up a webhook. So in settings, you have the webhooks option, and you create a new webhook, and you just say what is the payload. So it will the payload is going to the Jenkins using the GitHub webhook. You can use more types of webhooks, but GitHub webhook is okay for this case. And that's it for the GitHub part. Then we have the Jenkins part, and what Jenkins does basically that is he waits for changes in the GitHub. If some changes comes, then he makes some stuff. So what stuff does he make? How to create, how to make it work. So if you are creating a new ontology or a new pipeline, you need to create a new job in Jenkins. We agreed with Martin that it should be in the ontology group. So in this ontologies group, just create the new job. For this case, it's popis.build documentation because it builds documentation for the ontology popis.build. And what does it do? Basically, you need to configure the general in general configuration. You need to. It's good to say something about the pipelines or some description, and you need to link it to the GitHub project. So, what is the URL of the project on GitHub you want to build from? And then you say that you want to get the GitHub hook trigger from GitSCM. And that's basically all for the configuration, and all of other stuff you are doing through the pipeline script in Jenkins. Basically, you are saying here that you are listening to changes in this URL, and if something happens, you get the payload from GitHub. And the pipeline does 5 steps. Basically, it sets some system variables. Among those variables, you can prefer what is the name of the file that contains the ontology itself. What is the configuration file path? That's basically the 2 most important things in the system variables. Then you get the payload. So you just get the payload from the webhook, and then you get some more variables from the payload. So from the information you get from the GitHub, basically it's the name of the name of the ontology, the version of the ontology, and other stuff. And then the pipeline runs the WIdoco on the server with those variables that were set and that were received from the payload. So WIdoco runs the script, or Jenkins runs the WIdoco command with all those parameters, and in the end it generates the documentation and saves it on the server where the Jenkins is running. So the last thing you need to do is to copy all the outputs to the server where you want to publish the documentation, which is on top. So you need to copy it there. I will go quickly through some of the steps, which is important. So the WIdoco stuff, what does the WIdoco do and how does it do? Basically, we run this one command. You need to find, you need to call it, to call the WIdoco program, and you set some parameters. So you need to specify where is the configuration file, which is something you have set up in the beginning of the Jenkins pipeline as the environment variable. Then you say here that you want to include also the annotation properties, if there are any. And you also specify the ontology file. That means what is the name and the path to the file that contains the ontology. So those are the two variables you set up in the beginning. And then you specify that you want to generate also the web wall, which creates the schema of the ontology, some interactive picture. And then you specify the language or languages. In this case, I'm using only Czech language because I do not have the sections and configuration files for other languages. But anyway, I think that if you want to create a multi-language documentation, it would be probably better to do it as calling this command twice, once for every language, because you can better specify the configuration file and documentation sections and this kind of stuff. And then you specify the output folder, and this is something I came with Martin, just agreed on that where to store it in server. So this var www ontology documentation, and then you just create folder by the ontology name and then the ontology version. This has some methodological limitations. So if you are setting the ontology name, you are doing it in the configuration file. It should be something which is included in the URIs of the ontology. So not the popis space dot space ontology, but something like popis dash dot or something like that. It needs to be something from which I can create the path. And that's basically it. And then I just need to deploy it. So for deploy, I'm just using this secure copy command, because it looks cool and it looks easy, but in reality it's a little bit more difficult because I'm checking some stuff and I'm creating symlinks and changing user permissions and copy some more stuff. But this looked cooler, so I just included this one line. And then we just need to set up Apache to publish the documentation. So basically, we just need to use all the aliases. We have encountered some problems with Apache previously, but in the last presentation, I said what we have to set up. Basically, we need to create an alias and or rewrite conditions for every page you want to access directly from the documentation. So you need to have here a lot of lines, and if you make this work, then you get updated ontology. So basically, right now, if you do some changes in the ontology and you push it to GitHub, all those processes will start automatically, and in a few seconds you get the newly updated version of ontology documentation on the web, including the date of the last revision. So now it's thanks slide again. So right now it's really over. So thank you for your attention, and I just looking forward. I'm looking forward for some of your questions. You got some?
Okay, thanks for presentation. I did not understand about this one file. You should include one file there, or I don't. You showed me some command line, some command on command line, and there was one file. What is this ontology file? Is it like ontology containing all other ontologies, or what is this? Like, what if I have 50 files in the repository? Like I have a repository, which is the case, and let's say I have 15 files, and they are separate ontologies. How will this work?
You want to create fifth documentation from all the 50 ontologies at once?
Well, I want to have some mechanism how to do it easily. I don't have one ontology per repository. Typically, at least 5 ontologies.
I don't really think that's something we would like to have it right now, because I think that we were discussing it earlier, and we said that we have one separate repository for every ontology.
No. Per project, you have project. You're doing something. You're doing some system, for example, some ontological system, some information system. Sorry, and you just need ontologies for that. You need to define some
Okay,
domain
but you
stuff.
want to, so you have 5 ontologies there. All of them are newly created.
Yep, sure.
Yeah, and you want to create a documentation for every one of them.
Yes, why not?
So I think that in that case you need to create 5 Jenkins jobs, and for every ontology, and in every job you just specify which ontology you are documenting right now. So you need to specify the ontology file and the configuration file for that specific ontology.
Okay.
Again, I personally think that you should probably do it in one. I think you should be able to do a cycle in the pipeline script, but I don't think that's the
Yeah, I think it will be possible, but that's definitely not something I was counting with when I was making this example.
No,
Well,
that's not the problem. I
yeah.
I don't think I wouldn't even see it as a problem if the repository contained multiple ontologies. As long as you are able to specify the ontology file, then it doesn't matter that you are referencing files.
But the downside is that if you update only one ontology, the documentation will be generated for all of them.
Yeah.
But it's not really big issue. It just regenerates the same version of the same documentation.
I don't see it as a problem.
Of course, I think it could be reworked. So if the ont file will be some kind of array, then you will just call it in some cycle, and for every one of them, I think it would be okay. But it's something you need to think about when you are creating the pipeline.
Okay.
I just try to make it as easy as possible. So that means that if anyone creates a new ontology, the new repository with ontology, all he needs to do is copy the Jenkins job and rewrite the webhook path. It's like the project, the URL of the GitHub project. So where to look for the changes, and then rewrite just the first part of the pipeline where you set up the environmental variables. So what is the name of the ontology file? What is the location of the configuration file? And if you specify those two things, then you don't need to do anything else, and everything should work.
Okay, I was picturing it a little bit easier, in sense that I thought that we would have like just repository of TTL files, and they would be somehow marked that you want to have an ontology. Either you put some documentation element within the ontology, or you just put it will be something like .onto TTL, which I don't like, but somehow we mark it, and then you have just GitHub GitHub action. And always when you create project, you just include this GitHub action if you want to deploy ontologies to KBSS, and it would be run automatically, and you don't have to set up any Jenkins job, even per ontology or something like that. So to me, this is something how I would picture. I don't know where are the issues of that, why it needs to be run in Jenkins, and why we need to have like multiple Jenkins jobs. It's like quite a lot of work to set up and remember, to me.
The thing is that
so I would prefer just copy the GitHub action and have a convention how to find out which ontology should be published, and have all metadata in that ontology, while have convention where it will be deployed, and so something like that. But I don't know. Of course, I don't see inside what are the issues, why we need to have it in Jenkins and everything like that. But this is somehow how I picture it, and so we can discuss if this is somehow possible to do, or if it's nonsense what I'm saying. It could be.
Okay, I also encountered some problems. So the first thing is that if you set it up everything like you say, then you need to have a lot of problems in the methodology. So you need to set up the methodology, how to have some naming conventions, have specific places where to store everything. So the GitHub action, it will be in general that you will know what is the name and how to get it. So in that case, there should be much more control on how do you store the data. That's one thing. Second thing is about Jenkins. We really need to run the WIdoco, and Jenkins is running on the server, and you can run WIdoco on that server. I'm not really sure how you would run it in the GitHub action. So I think this is the main reason.
Yeah, GitHub action can connect to KBSS WIdoco. Well, I don't see issue in that. There could be service at KBSS that would somehow take parameters and deploy something, or I don't know. I mean, I could think of.
Okay, so instead of creating a Jenkins job, you need to create some service on the server which will
yes.
run with the parameters.
Yes. The main problem with me is why I would one thing that could be solved is if there is a one Jenkins job that solves this. I mean, it would be to me better. But what I don't like is that you have to set up for each ontology one Jenkins job. This is something to me that is, it shouldn't be necessary. It shouldn't be necessary.
Basically, it's for every GitHub project, and I think the reason I wasn't going deeper into this, but as far as I know, the Jenkins job, if you want to connect it to the webhook from GitHub, you need to connect it to one project. So you cannot just connect it to more projects. So that's the reason why you need to have more Jenkins jobs.
Yeah, I don't think...
If we solve the problem with the methodology, even if you solve the problem with more ontologies in one repository, you still need to connect the Jenkins job to the one specific GitHub project.
Well, GitHub action is what connects it. Like GitHub action can call whatever on KBSS with some secret, I guess. I mean, why not? Yeah. Okay, Martin, go ahead.
I think you can solve it in multiple ways. I think you can have one Jenkins job and determine the GitHub repository or the file from the payload, or have the Jenkins job parameterized in some way. But I think the easiest way is to extract the information from the payload from the webhook. In that way, I believe it should be possible to have just one Jenkins job for all the ontologies, and just manage it on based on the webhook payload. I think that should be possible.
I was investigating that option. I was playing a little bit with the getting information more, from the payload, like the more information from the payload. And I went through some tutorials, and for that you cannot use the GitHub SCM's payload, but you need to get the general webhook. And then it's more complicated to handle it a little bit. And the thing is that I spent some hours on that, according to some tutorials, and I wasn't able to make it running in the way I wanted. So I just came back to the GitHub action webhook, to the GitHub webhook, which worked exactly properly as I wanted to do. So I used this. I agree that if we get more, we could get much more information from the webhook. So in that case, we could just get almost everything from the webhook we need. But I was just playing with it for a while, and it didn't work as I assumed.
Yeah, I would like to remove some manual actions, and setting up webhook, you have to test it then and everything. This is to me like very big issue. Like you can set it up incorrectly. You have to remember how the GitHub looks like. So this is really putting some knowledge to person that is doing it, and time that he has to test it. And yeah, I think we should get rid of even need to set up the hook. I think this could be really like GitHub action, which is already preset to do whatever needs to be done, and the only thing that should be needed there is some kind of secret, so it is secure. But to me this setting up webhook is not something that I want to do, or even worse, to give somebody to do, because he will have to test it and even have access to our Jenkins and everything like that.
I disagree. I think it's if you want to do it via GitHub action, then you need to configure the GitHub action, not taking into account that we would have to create a new service for the WIdoco to be able to call it from the outside and secure it. So for me, the Jenkins, if we were able to have just one Jenkins job, which would be able to extract the information from the GitHub from the hook payload, then it's super simple to just enable the hook, copy paste the Jenkins URL, and you are done. You do it once for the repository. That's all.
Okay, so what about having this GitHub action which you just set up and it calls Jenkins job? I don't care if you just include file into your Git repository and it's done, and you comply with conventions how to annotate ontologies that should be extracted. That's all.
Well, I agree with Martin that I think that I'm not really sure that this is what Martin thought, but I think that setting a webhook from GitHub is easier than setting a GitHub action. And if that's all the differences between those two solutions, I just really go for setting a webhook and getting it from Jenkins. And I agree that I could research more deeper into Jenkins, how to make it like you don't need to create more jobs. Because if you use the Git, the general webhook trigger, you can just get the information from the payload. It was I spent some time on that, and I wanted to have it solved in some way. So I just came back to the GitHub webhook. But with the general webhook, it definitely would be possible to get all the information from the payload. And I think that setting up a service for current WIdoco, or just setting up the Jenkins to be called from GitHub action, I think it's easier to set up a webhook.
GitHub action is no need to set up. GitHub action is something that you just include file in Git repository and it works. And it can fail. The only thing is the secret, that you would have to include secret, which could fail the action and tell you that you need to include this secret, and that's it. You don't have to set up anything. You don't have to ask anybody to set up anything.
I don't know. I just think that if you are creating the webhook, you just open the settings and add one line to the form. That's it.
Yes, but you need to know what you need to put there, like what is the URL, and you need to test it if it works. And for that, you might need permission to Jenkins. No?
I don't really think so, because the Jenkins, if the Jenkins job is set up properly, then it sees the webhook and does something.
So it will be publicly available. It will be without. So we will not be able to.
Definitely, you still need to go into Apache, because there's no workaround for this.
Okay, and wait. So the Jenkins job would be publicly available. This is something. Okay, this is one thing. Okay, whatever. I told you my opinion. What about this Apache? Like, this is manual as well? Creating Apache rules to navigate to the ontologies. So you have to do it manually, or it is generated within the process?
I was doing manual. I wasn't just focusing on generating it. I think it would be possible probably because it's basically all the passes you want to include, so you just need to write it into the file somewhere. So I think it would be automated.
Okay. I think this can be also, Apache has includes, so we could somehow include file that would be generated from the ontology. Okay.
Yeah, basically, I think I wasn't really focusing during this work. I wasn't focusing on the publication Apache. I was just focusing on the automatic generation of the documentation. So if anything changes, I need to create a new documentation and publish it somewhere. And the thing with Apache is that I just do it once for every ontology.
Yeah, I understand that, but I guess I don't know. This is just too complicated to me, because you can change, you can refactor ontologies, you can I understand it for project when there is one ontology, but when there is like multiple ontologies, you really don't want to manage that. Not even adding new ontologies, but deleting old ones and everything. But at the same time, I'm looking at this WIdoco maybe more like to the one that we had before, which was showing all the ontologies. I forgot the name. What was the name? Sorry. We had before WIdoco. Maybe we even have it on the server, which shows Pubi. Yes. I'm looking at.
There's another task I wasn't investigating yet, but I just think that the Pubi it still works, but it's that project.
I'm looking at WIdoco's a little bit same as at Pubi, that I would like to publish almost everything there. So not like one ontology per project, but really like all ontologies.
I think it's something else, because the WIdoco just searches for creating the HTML files that document the ontology. And then there is another thing, that all of the concepts within the ontology, they have some URIs or URLs, and they are not the referenced, and this is what Pubi does in the original setup. And I wanted to replace Pubi with something else, but the problem here is that Pubi is dead, so I don't want to use the dead project anymore. And all other projects I have seen, they are using the Sparkle endpoint. So you cannot just create it from the file. You need to create a Sparkle endpoint and access it from the Sparkle endpoint. I do not think it's a big problem for us. Just we need to set it up somehow. So that means that we need to create some triple store all the data from the ontologies in that store, and set up this service. Set up the Sparkle endpoint, and then set up the service and connect it to the Sparkle endpoint to do something similar as Pubi did.
Okay. All right. So we have.
So it's like I had the presentation in December when I was looking through the softwares for generating documentations. So right now I did something, and the next step will be maybe to recreate the processes I have done now. So it can be done everything through one Jenkins job, or think about using the GitHub action, something like that. Definitely it will go further in this way somehow. And then another step is to set up the processes, how to dereference the URIs for the concepts. So this is everything in the process.
Okay, so Popis.dat ontology is already working like that. Yes.
What?
Is Popis.dat ontology already working like that?
Yes.
Okay. So that's good. So I look at it once I would like to set up new ontology, and then we can discuss how to optimize it.
There is a GitHub issue in the general repository, and there is the description what you need to do to set up this process for the new ontology. So all the steps that are needed, and it's actually shorter than I expected.
Okay, great. So fine, we have this mechanism. So just to improve the automatization, how to do to me.
It's definitely not perfect, but it's definitely better than it was because it was not existing.
Yeah. Okay. All right. Okay, thanks.
Fine. Thank you for the discussion, because I think it's important to put it forward. So I am stopping